you think the most important question is to ask in a conversation when you want to find the truth?
Oh, I definitely think it's why. In particular, politicians always ask the question twice.
I aspire to be this level of 50 Cent petty. Like, talk to me about what's happening there.
And the things that I've seen, I get it. Don't offend the wrong person. Yeah, that's one of the 48 laws of power. Do not offend the wrong person, because you might have an enemy for life.
So I kind of want to start with the fact that you've interviewed all of these legends for years. And I'm so curious, when you're interviewing big names, one of the most interesting parts for me listening to you is like, you don't let them go easy. Like, you got the hard questions almost always with like a lot of empathy, I think.
Nowadays.
Before
Nowadays, more empathy.
Interesting. Back in the day, you went at them?
I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just like, I didn't even look at them as humans, so to speak. I was just, I had a job to do, and I felt like I wanted to ask these questions as a curious person, right? And because, I always want to ask the questions that other people want to know about. And so it's just like, I was going to do that regardless. So I didn't even look at a person as a human. I know that sounds crazy, right? But I really didn't. It was just the subject of an interview. And I didn't think about this person is going to leave here and they might have a whole family or kids, or, they're going to be thinking about, these things later on. Like, so it's just like, I just used to ask the question.
Now, do you think you're nicer? Are you softer?
Yeah, I would hope so. I don't, nicer, softer. Like those aren't negative words, right? Like a lot of people like to act like those are negative words in this business. But some of the nicest, most softest people are known as some of the, greatest interviewers ever. Like, personally, I like, the Larry Kings of the world, right? Because they just had an intellectual curiosity. I remember one time Larry King told me, God bless the dead, Larry King said, the most important question you can ask in an interview, Charlamagne, is why? And so that's a simple question, but it does help you to dig, very deep. But then I love the interview style of people like, Barbara Walters as well. It might have came off as, intrusive and aggressive, but she knew that she had a job to do. And if that person is sitting in front of you as a, just a fan of culture, you have certain questions you're going to ask, but you also know that the people watching have questions they want you to ask. So I think it's a combination of both. So nice isn't a bad intention to approach, an interview with. Like, you can still be nice and still ask the hard-hitting questions.
What do you think the most important question is to ask in a conversation when you want to find the truth?
Oh, I definitely think it's why. And I definitely think when you're, interviewing people, in particular politicians, always ask the question twice. Because when you ask the question, they'll have a prepared answer for it, right? But then when you ask them again and say, but why? Now they really got an answer from the human aspect and not the politician. We sat around with our team and these are the answers we came up with to answer, this question. They really got to answer it. So I think, asking whatever the question is twice, but then when you ask it again, that's when you hit them with but why though?
Interesting. How much do you prep for an interview?
Oh, a lot.
What does that look like?
Like I said, I'm a fan of culture. And when I say culture, I don't just mean entertainment. I mean everything from sports to, politics, because politics is pop culture now, to, spiritualness, mindfulness, like all of these different things. So I'm usually already kind of well versed on whoever it is I'm sitting down talking to. But then, when you're sitting down to have an interview, you just want to see what's really going on, like in that moment, because usually, like, most people have something going on in that moment that you would want to talk about. If it's a author who has a book out, read their book. If it's a person who dropped a movie or a TV show, watch the movie, watch the TV show, just so you can be well versed on that individual. But I also like the sense of discovery that happens in interviews. So you don't want to be over prepped, right? Because sometimes you'll be talking to a person and you kind of already know where they're going with the conversation. So you might be saying things before they say it. So it's like sometimes I just like the sense of discovery of finding things out, in conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about it a lot. I mean, you have a giant audience. But I remember, like, it was just a few weeks ago when I realized, wow, one episode, if you consider shorts and YouTube too, is going to get a couple million people to watch it.
Yeah.
And if that means there's 1 million hours spent listening to this moment, it's kind of fucking scary.
I love it.
I better value it.
Yes.
What if we waste their time? What if we give them a bunch of bullshit?
But that's the thing. What you just said, Codie, is absolutely true. But I look at it also from another angle of, and I know this is going to sound dark, but what about when these people die? Like literally, like over the last 15 years, I've had conversations with a lot of people who are no longer here. So when I sit down with people, that's what I think about. What if this is this person's last conversation ever? You know, what if it's my last conversation ever? Like, but usually when you're talking to these people, yes, you know what I'm saying? But usually when you're talking to these individuals, these are moments in time that when, you know, this person gets older, they might use for documentaries, or when this person passes away, they might use for documentaries. These are things that that other interviewers are going to reference when they sit down, you know, to have conversations with these individuals. Like, yo, I saw you on, you know, Codie Sanchez show. I saw you on Breakfast Club with Charlamagne, and you said this. Like, so that's another way that I approach those conversations as well.
That's interesting. You seem pretty obsessed with what you do. Are you?
I think you got to be.
Yeah.
I think you got to be obsessed with, you know, whatever it is that you do to actually have success. Like, you know, if you're not obsessed about something, like, you know, if you're not obsessed about, you know, being on these microphones, or if LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, you know, God bless the day, Kobe, if they're not obsessed with what they do on the basketball court, if you're a public servant, if you're not obsessed, you know, with, you know, doing the bidding of the people in the streets, right? Like if you're not obsessed with what it is that you do, then why are you doing it? Like that's why they call it a passion, like that thing that you would do for free. Yes, I'm obsessed with communicating on these microphones, 100%, because I look at myself, you know, like a public servant. And because I know that, you know, I am serving the needs of the public every day, whether it's through making them laugh, whether it's through informing them, you know, whether it's through, you know, having somebody on that's going to say something beneficial to them, that's going to get them, you know, on a path of righteousness with spirituality, or, you know, decide to start going to therapy because, you know, we're having conversations about mental health. Whatever it is, you got to be obsessed with what it is that you do.
How did you figure out what you were obsessed with, or how did you find this path? I think so many people, and a lot of people listening, they say that, like, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or yeah, maybe I want to have a podcast, or is that just mimetic desire? Like, how does somebody who's totally lost and not sure what they're obsessed in, is there a trick to find what you could become obsessed with?
Man, that is an amazing question. It's a layered question because I can only speak for me, right? When I started off, I was born in 1978. Right. So I started doing radio back in 1998. Right. I started off as an intern in Charleston, South Carolina at Z93 Jams in 1998. And the reason I even, you know, got there is because I was just trying to find something positive to do because of the way I was living in the street. And it's so funny that all of the things I would get in trouble for in school, being disruptive, you know, talking too much, being the class clown, all of those things were actual qualities that when I got on the microphone helped me, right? So when I started off doing radio, I started off as an intern in 1998. I didn't get on the air until like 1999. I always got to salute my guy, Ron White. He texted me today and said, I think this is one of those times where you're ignoring me. Or you set a boundary with me. And he's right. But salute to my guy, Ron. But he's the first person to ever put me on air, right? Because I was an intern and I worked in the promotions department, so I would drive the van and, you know, put posters up and all of that stuff when the actual talent was on, you know, doing their remotes. But then Ron was like, yo, have you ever thought about being on the air, right? And I'm like, no, but what's up? And so they started putting me on the air, and it was literally one of those things that I just knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I remember the moment I was in the radio station doing overnights. Overnights is, you know, midnight to 6 a.m, where it just hit me like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I don't just want to be a local radio personality, you know, doing the time and temperature, you know, in a city. I want to be a super jock. You know, the super jocks back then were the Tom Joyners, you know, and the Doug Banks, you know, God bless the dead. Salute to my guy, Russ Parr, you know what I mean? Howard Stern, Angie Martinez, Wendy Williams. Those are the people you thought about when you thought about like the super jocks. And that's what I wanted to be. And I knew that I wanted to be that since 1999.
And
and I want to add one more thing.
get in there.
In my first book, Black Privilege, Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It, New York Times bestseller.
Great book. I read it.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
I have a chapter called Fuck Your Dreams. And the reason I say fuck your dreams is the name of the chapter, but the actual ideology is fuck your dreams if it's not your dream. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we see things working for other people and we say to ourselves, you know what, this is what I should be doing. But that's not what God has planned for you. Mm-hmm. Like God has something destined for you to unlock your greatness, but you got to figure out what that is. Like it's not just because you see everybody with a podcast don't mean that you should have a podcast. Just because you see these people on radio having success doesn't mean that you should, run to be a radio personality. Like, you should, even if you feel called to those spaces, number one, ask yourself why, right? What is your actual intention? If it's I want to make money and I want to be famous, that's not a real intention. What is your actual why to wanting to be in these spaces? And if you do feel called to be in these spaces, explore every aspect of the space. Like right now, we're recording this podcast in this studio. Somebody had to set up these cameras. Somebody had to set up these microphones, right? There's producers that are listening to us talk right now. There's all type of ways to be in this space, be in this business, and not be doing what you and I are doing right now. So that's what I would tell folks. If you do feel called to certain spaces in certain areas, doesn't mean that you're supposed to be Cody. Doesn't mean that you're supposed to be Charlamagne. Figure out what that means and why you're being called.
You talked about wanting to be a super jock, and let's just call that like one of the greatest of your profession. Mm-hmm. What do you think it takes to be the greatest in any profession? Like these days, there's a lot of people that'll say work-life balance matters a lot. Can you have work-life balance on your way up to greatness?
Yes. I might have answered that different some years ago. But yes, you can have work-life balance. I would actually tell people that, in this profession, work-life balance is actually what's probably going to make you have more success. Because for what we do, on these microphones, being able to communicate life in a way that connects with people is what kind of makes people gravitate towards us. So you got to live life in order to be able to do that, right? So when I'm, I just came back from Cape Town, South Africa, and I was there throughout the whole holidays, and it's just interesting to watch people from other countries and how they gravitate towards, somebody from another country just because they've been listening to them, for so long. And one of the things that a lot of the people kept coming up to me saying was, "Thank you for embracing our continent the way that you do. Thank you for having, they were naming different, African talent that has been on the show, whether it's, people like DeVito or Burna Boy or, me being friends with my homegirl DJ Cuppy or Bo Nong. Like they were, my man Casper, I'm gonna mispronounce his last name, so I'm just gonna say Casper. Y'all know who I'm talking about. But they were coming up to me because of the way that I connect with them and how I'm able to communicate my experience as a Black American, appreciating what it is that they do, and bringing them on my platform and having a conversation. So it's just, I think that you got work-life balance matter. Like I'm able to go to South Africa and like experience that place for myself, and then now come back to America and talk to my listeners who may never have been to South Africa. I've had the pleasure of being, going to Johannesburg and Cape Town. And that might make more people want to go to Cape Town and Johannesburg just listening to me communicate my experiences there. So yeah, I think you gotta have work-life balance because you have to live life, right? And not even just in this profession, just in general. Like, do yourself a favor and go live some life. You got 168 hours in a week. You know how much time that is? Like 168 hours. You should have more than enough time to do what it is you got to do as far as your living in your career is concerned, but also go out there and just have some time for yourself and your family.
You know what I think we should talk about that we talked about before? We were talking about time. And I said a line like, we ought to be done at this time. I worry about not respecting people in time. I'm married to a military man. So he really associates lateness or extension with disrespect, which is kind of like a military mentality. And so I was like, I'm going to make sure we're out on time. And you had like a really interesting take on a book you had read in 2 different types of time.
Yeah, it's this book that I love to read. It's called The Big Leap. Like I read it, often. But it's written by Gay Hendricks, and he talks about Newtonian time and Einstein time. And Einstein time, if I'm saying it correctly, Einstein time is basically us realizing that we create time. Now, I do agree you should respect, people's time. But when we say things like, I don't have the time for that. Yes, you do. You just don't want to do it. And you're using time as the scapegoat. And the example he uses is like your kid might walk in and your kid might ask you to play. And you'd be like, I don't have time for that right now. But if your kid walked in and your kid was, cut and bleeding, you would stop everything and you would have the time to do whatever it is to make your child stop bleeding and stop feeling that pain. And so it's just the way we look at, what time is, instead of treating time like it's something that's out of our control, or we're a victim to it. No, you have all the time that you create.
So do you not say the words, I don't have time? Do you replace it with something?
That's why I constantly read books, the same book over and over, right? When I'm really into a book, I read it over and over because you want to constantly try to practice these things that you are learning in that book. But yeah, there's no such thing as not having time. The other saying that we always say is you make time for what you want to make time for. So instead of saying, I don't have time, I don't want to right now. Like, it's like somebody comes to me right now and is like, hey, man, I would really love if you would be at such and such, blah, blah, blah. Let me talk to my assistant so I can check my schedule and see if I can squeeze it. You don't really want to do it. Because things that you actually want to do, oh my God, I'm there. Like, yo, let's figure it out. Like, then that's when you hit your team and like, yo, this person wants me to do X, Y, and Z, be X, Y, and Z. Let's figure it out. And I think that's actually what it is. Instead of saying I don't have time, to be like, I don't want to. That's this year right here is all about the no.
Wow.
Like that's really a boundary that I think that we are just afraid to set a lot. Like we're afraid to tell people no because all of us are people pleasers, in different ways. And we all want that validation from other humans. And we hate telling other humans no because we feel like if we tell them no, then they're not going to look at us the same, or they're not going to respect us the same, or they're not going to, speak of us in a positive way. There's nothing wrong with telling somebody, no, I don't want to right now.
Well, it's good that you say that because I think, if I was to just watch you on the internet, I might not think Charlamagne the people pleaser. That's probably not like one of the things I would label you, know? And so I think people would say, no, he probably sets pretty firm boundaries. I bet he's really good at that. But is that even something that you've struggled with? Saying,
oh, absolutely. I've been a people pleaser for a long time. And I mean, people pleasing doesn't always look like just allowing people to do whatever it is they want, you to do. Sometimes people pleasing looks like being overly aggressive in an interview. You know what I'm saying? Bombarding somebody with questions because you're worried about what the people watching are going to say about you. If you got a reputation, right, as this hard-hitting question asker, then you feel like you got to ask the hard-hitting questions. That's people pleasing. If you're doing it because you're worried about how other people are going to take it, how other people are going to consider it, how other people are going to view it, that is people pleasing.
It's interesting because you've been at this game a long time and you've had, people hating on you for things. You've had people loving on you for things. You've had some of the same people who used to love you hate you for things multiple times,
That's right.
And so I'm curious, what do you do to stop caring about the haters? Like, what do you do when you're getting backlash? Everybody seems to be talking shit. Nobody likes you. How do you deal with that? You
just genuinely gotta not give a fuck. And I have 2 people in my life that gave me great pieces of advice that I always reference, even if, at times I didn't always feel what they were saying. Like I didn't apply it, right? My man Cadillac Jack, who along with my guy G-Spin put together the Breakfast Club. Cadillac Jack told me early on in the Breakfast Club, I need you to remember the rule of 10. What's the rule of 10? The rule of 10 is 3 people gonna like you, 3 people not gonna like you, 4 people don't even know what the fuck's going on. And that is very true in life. Like, that is just the absolute truth. Like, we are so concerned about what everybody thinks, and we think everybody is paying attention to us. 4 people don't even know what the hell is going on. And then the 3 people that like you, they gonna like you no matter what. The 3 people that don't like you, they not gonna like you no matter what. But guess what? The algorithm don't know the difference. So when the 3 people that like you are talking about you, great. When the 3 people that don't like you are talking about you, great. Your name is just all throughout the algorithm. My daddy used to always say to me, you're never as good as they say you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are. That one, I've always understood. I've always been like right in the middle with that. And I mean, that's really just life, right? Like, you have to be a very egotistical, narcissistic person to think that everybody likes you and to think that everybody's thinking about you, right? Like, there is nobody on this planet, forget humans, there is nothing on this planet that everybody universally loves, not even God. Like, no, I want you to just think about that for a second. There is nothing, not even puppies, not ice cream, some of the purest things that you can think about. There is nothing on this planet that everybody universally loves. So for me, hey man, I'm just happy I make you feel something. I really genuinely feel that. I'm just happy I make you feel something, because I would rather be, thought of in some way than to not be thought about at all.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, and maybe we end up doing deals together.
You had this conversation with 50 Cent before he put out the documentary, and you had you basically were prescient about what was happening in the world. And now, I mean, it's not really therapy for 50, but watching him hold this level of revenge am I a sick person that I watch it and the memes that are I aspire to have this level of revenge that 50 Cent has?
Yeah.
I mean,
50 is a Cancer. I'm a Cancer. So I understand 50's level of petty.
You do?
I completely understand 50's level of petty. Plus, I'm privy to a lot of the whole backstory between him and somebody like Diddy. So I get it. People and it's funny. 50 is such an interesting person to me, and I've been having these conversations about 50 for years. I remember it started with, a long time ago, a couple of executives in the business was talking to me about 50, and they was like, why does he always got to go after Urban Ja? Why can't he just finally, God bless the dead, why can't he just let it go? I'm like, he got shot 9 times. They've had fist fights. He got stabbed by them. You wouldn't really let that go either. That's not something you could just, I don't even think a therapist could tell you just to let that go. And they were like, you know what? You're right. You know what I'm saying? So there's always, and I remember 50 said this one time. 50 was like, people always see when I punch, but they don't see when the person swung at me first.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying everything, he does is justified, because I really don't know. But from the things that I've seen, I get it. I completely, understand it. And that's why you got to just be, don't offend the wrong person.
True.
Yeah, that's one of the 4-day laws of power. Do not offend the wrong person, because you might have an enemy for life.
I would never want to, 50, just cut the podcast, edit it out.
and honestly, man, sometimes that is therapeutic within itself. Just saying fuck a person. I don't fuck with you. Who says we have to fuck with people?
Yeah, I know.
Like, who says that? Like, we talk about that statement, money is the root of all evil. Who told us that we gotta forgive everybody? Who told us that, we gotta love everybody? Like, who said that? Like, nah, sometimes it's fuck this person, and it's fuck this person for life, and I don't fuck with them. And people be like, man, you exhausting too much energy on that individual. Says who? Yeah, right. And what if I want to exhaust this energy on this individual? Like, what if I want, to do exactly what it is that I'm doing, and it makes me happy to do it? Who am I to tell that person that they're wrong? And by the way, whatever energy comes back to you from doing that, he got to deal with that. And I think he's fully aware.
Yeah.
I think he's fully aware of it, and it does not bother him in any way, shape, or form. And there's a certain level of freedom that I admire. It is.
That smile when he does.
It's a certain, and by the way, I've had these conversations with him, like,
have you?
On air, off air, because I've been he's one of the most interesting, people to me, just because he's a Cancer, and there's a lot of things that I relate to.
And he seems like a smart motherfucker.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Like,
you don't come out of South Side Jamaica, Queens, and achieve the things that he's achieved. Achieved things, lost things, got him back triple, and not even having success in multiple industries. That's what he don't get enough credit for. Yeah, he did his thing in music, but he went from an artist, started his own label, had successful artists under his label. Like, I'm glad we're having this conversation as well. But he's another person that I really look at, as a blueprint, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I remember, he says things that I remember. He said, I'm a general with G Unit, but I'm a soldier when I'm with Eminem and Dr. Dre. That right there is a jewel, because I hate when people say things like, yeah, but you work for a corporation, and I also own a lot of things on my as well. So what's the problem? Like, you can do both. And to watch him go from a talent, right, to starting his own record label, to having 4 or 5 successful artists, then having success with clothing, having success with a sneaker, then now in television and film. Do you know how hard that is?
Cannot imagine.
This guy has multiple franchises of various TV shows.
Yeah. And he lost it. That's the part that I think, like, coming back, like the mental fortitude to lose it, to be in bankruptcy, like you can make it. You can make it.
Absolutely.
But to lose it and get it back.
And to get it back.
Oof.
Yeah. And to and to remain himself throughout it all.
Yeah.
I actually think sometimes he does that just to remind himself, I'm still me. Let me jump. I be feeling that sometimes, like, let me find somebody to really go at it with right now, just to remind myself I'm still me. Like, I don't know. I got a lot of respect and
I'm gonna clip this out, and every time somebody talks shit, I'm gonna re-listen to you, and I'm gonna remember this.
But listen, don't listen to me though, because I'm a Cancer, and I'm still dealing with my own stuff too. So I can't
hold revenge. I think it's a little healthy to be able to keep like a little bit of that edge.
Yeah, and I like
let it go.
And I like anti-heroes.
Oh yeah,
that's my thing too. I like anti.
Do you have one? Do you have like a Diddy? Like 50 has one? Do you have one? And you're like, yeah, fuck that guy right now. I won't say his name, but Dan.
Yeah, but I already won.
Oh shoot!
I won several. I done won several. I've had a few, but I've won. So it's like it's not the same. You know what I mean? There's nobody I really want to like stomp on them. Why they? I don't. And probably, you know what? Probably I've never had one to that level. I probably never had one to that level. I've never had nobody try to like physically, like. Well, I'm lying. I have had people send people to physically harm me, but it's not like a punch in the face. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like a shooting or a stabbing or anything like that. So, yeah. But when I say I like anti-heroes, I like the Batmans of the world. I like the, Tony Starks, the Deadpools, the Wolverines. You know what I mean? I like those type of anti-heroes. I'm the guy that, I root for the villain in movies sometimes, and to me, like 50 is the ultimate hip hop anti-hero.
What about you? You've been doing Breakfast Club for many years now.
15.
You've been online for, how long have you been online before Breakfast? We're going to tell everybody how old you are, basically.
No, let me see. I mean, there's two different types. I'm old enough to remember that there's two different types of online. right?
The first time.
Because there was the MySpaces.
Oh, fuck. I remember that.
You know what I'm
Yeah, like
saying?
the square people. And you
That's
got
right.
upset.
So there was the
I remember that.
MySpaces. There was the Black Planets, but those weren't necessarily social media. Like you might be in a forum or a chat room, I forgot what they used to call them, chat rooms or something back then. But yeah, I remember Twitter. I remember when I got on Twitter so early, I didn't even know that people replied to you. I remember when somebody said, you got to check your apps. I think it might have been Little Duval or somebody I was talking to. And I'm like, I don't really like Twitter, man. You just be on there, like you just be on there talking to yourself. And he was like, what do you mean you be on there talking to yourself? I'm like, I post stuff, but it's just there. And he was like, man, you got to check your ads. I'm like, the ads? And then that's when you clicked on your ads and you started seeing everybody atting you. And you're like, oh,
But you're like, I
okay.
wish I never knew that existed.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it some days.
I stopped going on Twitter in like 2018, 2019. But
healthy.
we got on, I think I got on Twitter in like 07, 08 maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, that place is a little wild.
Oh, it's not good for my mental health in no way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But you got to know that though. We're all in verbally abusive relationships with our smartphones. Why would you go to a place where somebody's constantly telling you that you ain't shit? If you were married to a person like that, you wouldn't stick around in that relationship. If you were at a job and you had a boss talking to you like that, I don't think you would stick around in that relationship. So why do we do that with social media? Like, you know, and I'm not, forget just the block features and the unfollowing folks. I'd rather not even go over there. Like, you know, I'm a stern believer in if somebody be like, hey man, why don't you come over to the house? Or, you know, we having this party, or we having a cookout. Who all over there? If they say the wrong people and the wrong energy, you not going. So why do we take our monkey asses over to social media, especially Twitter? Like, I have no place, I have no desire to be over there.
That's really smart. A little social cleanse.
I have not been on there since 2018.
What about, like, you've probably changed a lot since 2018. Like, I imagine 15 years online. Are there some things that you have said before, like back in the day, you're like, this is true, I believe it with all of my being, and now, fuck, I was wrong.
I remember talking to Malcolm Gladwell one time, and Malcolm Gladwell said to me, you know, there's a lot of things that I wrote in books like The Outliers that I don't necessarily believe anymore.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh my God, like that kind of threw me for a loop. But then I had to think to myself, like, just because he wrote it in that book and he has maybe evolved and, you know, learned a lot more information and it's taken him someplace else, doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to pick up that book right now and it's going to meet them where they are.
Do you think about your books that way? Like, when I was going back through and I hadn't read one, I didn't realize you had multiple books. Mm-hmm. And so when when I went back and I was reading, so I had read Black Privilege. And then when I went through and I was looking at Get Honest or Die Lying.
Yep, that's my last one, my third one. Yep.
I didn't realize that you had such a focus on mental health. And I don't know why. I guess I had seen Breakfast Club and I'd thought of your persona a lot there. But I like asking you these questions because when I think about the person who's listening here, I'm always thinking about them, maybe a little less than the guest. Like, what does Charlamagne have that I feel like every human listening is just going to it's going to blow their mind this week and it's going to help their life somehow. And that's kind of how I think about you. It's like you have this amazing career, but it's mostly like, what do you got that they need? You know? And when I think about your career in particular, there's a couple ways I want to go with it that I think could be really helpful with people. One, conversations, we're having less of them. You have them deeply. And even with people you don't, well, I don't know if you don't like them or not, but maybe you don't agree with everything. Maybe you sometimes don't like them. And I guess one of the questions I have for you is like, what do you do when you have a conversation with somebody you don't like or agree with?
You just agree to disagree. Like, I don't think, I don't know if there's too many people I've had conversations with who I don't like because I don't know them personally not to like them. Yeah, I may not like their ideologies. I may not like, you know, some of their worldviews, but I don't know them personally to not like them. And I mean, that's what conversation is for. And just because you have a conversation with a person doesn't mean you're going to end up liking them at the end of the conversation. But I feel like as human beings, we should, you know, respect each other enough to discuss. And even if we discuss and debate and, you know, argue and, you know, we might even get to yelling in an interview. But I think that's just what happens when you are having a real, healthy, honest conversation with somebody. So I don't I think this is our job. Like, I'm a radio personality. I'm a podcast person. I'm a media personality, right? Just like you're a media personality. If I choose to invite you into my space and have a conversation with you, it is ridiculous to just then say, you know what, I'm going to slam dunk on this person. I'm inviting this person in my space just to slam dunk on them. If you get dunked on in the midst of the conversation, that's different. But I invited you for a conversation. So have the conversation and see where it goes.
Do you get a lot of comments online like, why are you having this person on?
All the time.
All the time. What do you say to the people who won't have a conversation with somebody? Like, what if somebody's listening right now, and this happens around the holidays, probably good timing for it. They're like, I'm not fucking going home because Aunt Becky loves insert one political party, and I don't want to talk to him.
I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And the reason I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world, because, politics are very fleeting, right? In the next few years, hopefully, right, if we still have free and fair elections, they'll be electing, somebody else, and there'll be a lot of damage done because of the current administration, but the way people felt will kind of be a thing of the past, right? Maybe. Maya Angelou said that, people will forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, they'll never forget how you made them feel. So maybe people will forget about it. But man, I've been alive long enough to have seen how this goes, before. And I mean, that's your family member. Don't blame who's in the White House on you not wanting to talk to your family member. You never liked this person to begin with. Like, cut it out. Like, because if you could just cut me off or cut somebody off based on who they voted for, you never really liked that person. This goes back to what we were saying about time. Don't blame time for you not wanting to do something. You don't like this individual. You never really did, and now you feel like you got a valid excuse to not talk to that person anymore. And I feel like, when it comes to just us as media personalities, listen, I've seen media personalities, say, I don't know why, Charlamagne talks to these kind of people, or why the Breakfast Club talks to these kind of people. They don't say that to anybody else but us. Like, they don't say that to Jake Tapper. Right? Historically, they didn't say that to people like, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey. I grew up in the era of watching Donahue have the Grand Wizard of the KKK on. Yeah. Right? And I grew up in the era of, Donahue would host, not just Donahue, everybody would talk to people that they didn't necessarily agree with. Right? Nobody said anything back then. So why is it such a thing now? And I would tell all of these media personalities, when you say things like, man, I would have never done that. That's why you're not me. That's just the reality of the situation. That's why you're not me. So don't ask yourself why you don't get the things that I get, per se. Yeah. Because you don't do the things that I do. I have no problem sitting down having conversations with people that I may not agree with. But that's just because of the great personalities that I saw before me. They were doing the same thing. They used to do specials where they would go talk to Charles Manson while he was in prison. They talked to Jeffrey Dahmer. He ate people. Like, and you're not going to talk to somebody just because they got a different
Republican.
A Republican? That's crazy. That's crazy to me. I'm also old enough to remember when people hated guys like George W. Bush. Now everybody loves George, but they love watching George Bush with Michelle Obama, and it's so cute, such a great relationship. I remember when y'all were calling George Bush the Antichrist.
That's true. Well, or if you go back to history, Democrats were actually Republicans. Republicans were actually Democrats. Like the whole party, they've changed back and forth.
They had different ideologies at the time, though. So
totally. But it's kind of wild to see, what used to be a Democrat today was a Republican at one point, and vice versa. It's like we put these hard lines on it. But it's a really interesting point because you're right. I actually went to journalism school. I always wanted to be a journalist. I ended up in business and finance for all these other reasons. I guess we've come back. But I used to love Walter Cronkite for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time where you would want to get that interview. Like, we saw freaking Barbara Walters went and spoke to Fidel Castro. Like, those were the type of things that we constantly saw the greats do. So who are we to be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Nah, that's so if not you, who? And why not talk to that person and ask that person the questions that, the world may want to know?
I want to talk a little bit about like the business side for a second. One, congratulations. Amazing news recently on a huge deal you did. It's so cool.
Thank you. Re-signed with iHeartMedia.
Yeah. And I think like, not even to get into details on that, but like, it's really cool to see somebody do an incredible deal and do a re-signing and have it go really public and have it be in this new age of media, which is, I think typically deals like that, you had to be with CNN or CNBC or some huge network. And now this is kind of you, you could move Breakfast Club, Charlamagne, anywhere, and you're the network now. So it's really cool to see. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I mean, even salute to iHeart. I've been with iHeart for 15 years. Started off as a talent, then became a partner when I created the Black Effect Podcast Network, which is, by far the largest podcast network, for Black podcasts. I think right now we got like 50 to 60 podcasts but we wanted to create a space that was specifically for Black podcasters because that didn't exist. Like, I'm the type of person, I like to look around the marketplace and, see what's missing from the marketplace. And that was something that was missing to me. Yeah. I loved what Bill Simmons was doing with The Ringer. I loved, watching what they were doing with Smartless. I loved watching what they were doing with Gimlet. But I saw a lot of these Black creators who were doing two things, right? They were putting their podcast out, but it was like video first. So their videos were getting like tremendous views, but the audio wasn't necessarily reflecting that.
Yeah, that's hard to grow.
We all know that the money is in the audio. Yeah. So I was like, man, what if we created this network, got these individuals who already have these, podcasts, put us, all under one umbrella and use iHeart sales team to really, really pump their audio because iHeart is the biggest, conglomerate when it comes to audio. Nobody does audio better than iHeart. I'm not saying that because I work with them. I'm saying that because it's the truth, right? So radio, podcasting, nobody does audio better than iHeart. And man, if I could show y'all the data of some of these podcasts who had these big video numbers, but the audio numbers weren't necessarily matching the video, and how when they partnered with Black Effect and iHeart, how we were able to get those audio numbers booming to the point where we're at like 11 million, 12 million audio downloads a month. Wow. And that makes, Black Effect, one of the biggest podcast networks out there. Like that's very rare air to be, have a network getting 11 million, 12 million audio downloads a month. And, things like that is what makes you a lot more valuable to, whatever company you're with.
What's interesting, I kind of want to talk about that for a second. I don't know about you, but I had a long period, and I'm thinking through it right now, but where I'm Latina and a chick, and it always bothered me when somebody would reach out to me and say like, hey, we want to talk to you. You're a female CEO. We'd love to have a female CEO come speak about XYZ. Or like, you're a Latina CEO. Come speak. And I kind of would be like, one, if it was female CEO, I'd be like, I don't know what my vagina has to do with it. Like, I'm just in charge of this business, and I happen to have that anatomy, And I remember I did write that in one email, and then one of my execs was like, maybe we could not do that. But I kind of like took it personal. I had a little chip on my shoulder. Maybe I have less of one now, but I'm curious for you, like when people say like, Charlamagne, Black CEO, come speak. Like, are you like, yeah, fuck yeah, because I represent all these people? Or are you like, who cares? I'm a CEO. I just happen to be Black. Like, how do you think about that?
That's a great question. I don't, when I pull up the Chick-fil-A, it don't bother me that, they specialize in chicken sandwiches. I'm pulling up to Chick-fil-A because they specialize in chicken sandwiches, or if I want to go to, pizza, if I want pizza that night, I'm not going to go to a burger spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, for me, it don't bother me because we are unicorns, because we can't sit here and act like we don't understand the country that we live in. We live in the country called America. America is, a country that was founded on white supremacy. Like, just call it what it is, right? So like, that is what people think of when they think of America. That's what they've always presented to us, right? Like a white man. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a problem being a quote unquote unicorn in this space. If you are a, woman CEO who's done great things, hey, sadly, we live in a country that doesn't think women can do amazing things. Like, this is a country that, just gave women the right to vote in our lifetime, right? So you know how they kind of already perceive women. So when they look at you as a woman CEO, they're looking at you like, damn, I can't believe she did all. I can't believe she got that done. Why? Because you're a woman. Same thing with a black person. Why? I can't believe that a black person could achieve those kind of things because of all of the things that this country has thrown at us historically. So things like that do not bother me. If you want me to come out here and be the bearded woman at the circus, or like, I don't have no problem with that. Because I feel like, by the time I sit down with you and have a conversation, you're going to say to yourself, I understand why that person is in the position that they're in.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think culture and race are, I don't think about it as much now because I'm like a little bit of a spreadsheet nerd. But, as I've gotten on the internet more, and then people, of course, they notice you. They're like, yeah, he's black. And yeah, she's a chick. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that's part of the equation.
Yeah,
whatever.
You're stating obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, all right. But then I realized, man, actually there was a bunch of stuff when I was growing up that we didn't actually do that I think hurt us monetarily and and by us, I guess I mean women or Latinos in this instance. Like when I was growing up, you know how they say you don't talk about sex, religion, politics?
Politics, yeah.
For Latinos, religion's cool. Jesus is all around. Like everybody can talk about Jesus. But you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about money. Like money's like nobody talks about that as a Latino. And I think for that reason, it was harder for me to make money, like growing up, like because I was like, no, we don't talk about it. It's not good. It's private. Rich people kind of suck because you had to be bad to get it. And so I had all these ingrained narratives. And I'm curious, and like in black culture, is it similar at all? Can you talk about money in the same way? Are there like things that hold black people back monetarily that you're like, why the fuck do we do that and don't do that anymore?
That's a great question. I don't like to answer questions on behalf of the whole black race because black people are not monolithic. Yep. And, there's a lot of black people who don't like me. So I don't want them to think that I'm speaking. Nope. I'm speaking for them. But from my perspective, yeah, a lot of conversations like financial literacy did not happen, in the black community. Like at least in my community. I don't want to say in the black community, at least in my circumference. Like, my father was definitely an entrepreneur, right? Like my father, he owned a fish market when I was young. So I would be there hanging out, working. My father also did construction. So he was an entrepreneur, even though he did work for a construction company for a period of time. But for the most part, all the money he made was, doing things independently. So that was always kind of my mindset. But nobody taught me about, taxes and, high yield savings accounts and stocks. Like I didn't learn about any of that stuff till I got in my late 30s, early 40s. I think the not talking about money thing is interesting though, because of course none of us wanted to be broke, right? That's what led, guys like me to start selling dope, right? Because, you don't want to be broke, but money was never my motivation, ever. A lot of the times, even when I started, selling dope, I was just doing that because the people around me were doing it. And, you would get clowned for being broke, but I never needed money to really get anything that y'all got. Like a lot of times these guys are, trying to get money to impress women and things like that. I wasn't the best looking, but I could hold a really good conversation. I could make you laugh. Like there,
check.
You know what I mean? There was a lot. The girls that y'all was, trying to get, I was getting just being my natural broke self, right? So it's like money was never my motivation. What was my motivation was wanting to realize my full potential as a person on this planet.
Even when you were younger, you were
even
never
when I was
scared
younger,
about being broke or not having money? That wasn't part of your equation. Were you religious when you were young?
Yeah, I grew up, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My grandmother was a Baptist. My father was a Jehovah's Witness too till he got this fellowship. And then, he started studying Islam. So I was getting hit from all different angles. I had my grandmother who was a Baptist. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. So, my father who was studying Islam. So I was reading Watchtowers, Awakes, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Like I had it all. But there was different things that motivated me to want to be successful. Like when I heard Biggie Smalls say, being broke at 30 give a brother the chills. Like, right? Or when TLC made No Scrubs. I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy sitting in his best friend's ride, you know, on the passenger side, trying to holler at me. All of the, or when Outkast and Goody Mob made, I want to get up. You need to get up, get out and get something. Don't let the days of your life pass by. You need to get up, get out and get something. You know, don't spend all your days getting high because, you know, you and I got to do for you and I. When you hear that, that's not necessarily about money. That's just about, brother, you know, get up and do something with your life, figure it out. And even back then, man, I had no problem. I thought about going in the military. You know, there was a time I wanted to work at UPS because, you know, I had an uncle who worked at UPS. Like, and same thing with the military. I had my mother's first cousin, his name was Bruce. He was in the military. So I was just looking at all of these different things that could potentially get me off this dirt road in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. It wasn't necessarily always entertainment. Like, I had no problem living what people call the so-called American dream. Like, you just figure out something, you know, that can make you some money to be able to afford a nice place to stay, have some food on the table. And if you want to have a family one day, you can do that. But, you know, it wasn't necessarily, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be this, you know, multi-millionaire. You know, it wasn't necessarily that. Like, I just wanted to not waste the life that God gave me on this planet.
Yeah, it's true. You have talked a lot about God on your podcast, in your books, here. What is your relationship with God? And like, how do you use that in your day-to-day?
Man, I'm only sitting here because of God. You know, whatever you want to call him, Jehovah, you know, Allah, you know, Jesus Christ. Like, I'm literally in this position that I'm in right now because from the time that I can remember, from day one, there was a higher power, you know, guiding me. I know we talk about having like praying grandmothers and, you know, praying mothers. I really, really had that. Like, I was a kid going to field service every Saturday morning, right? So, you know, as long as I can remember, I've been a praying person, and not just, you know, praying and asking God for guidance and direction, and like literally feeling that presence of a higher power with me. That higher power literally guiding me and directing me and telling me to go do X, Y, and Z. Go do this, go do that. Like, literally. And, you know, it was the times where I didn't listen to that voice the way I should have, you know, that caused, you know, so-called negative things to happen to me. And the reason I say so-called negative things is because I feel like everything is just a part of this process called life, right? The so-called good, the so-called bad, everything that happens to you while we're living this thing called life is just part of the process that led you and I to both be sitting here, you know, in this moment. But I just feel like the whole way through, it's just been God. And I mean, I remember last year, I said to God, I was praying, meditating, and I said to God, God, I am ready for every single thing you have planned for me on this planet. I said, I want it all. And I know people might hear that and they might think, you know, monetary things are just the good things that come with success. No, I want to experience every single thing that God wants me to experience on this planet. Because I truly believe that. I truly believe that, you know, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So I don't care what it is. I take good news, so-called good news, the same way I take so-called bad news. Because it's just like, all right, well, what God got planned for me next? Like, you know, even today, you might get some news from a business perspective and you like, I didn't want that to happen, but God clearly has something else planned. So I'm open for it.
So interesting. I have this line. I guess I was raised similar to, I was raised with a lot of religious influence. It didn't permeate, or it did negatively at some point, and I felt like I had to break that. I became sort of an agnostic, atheist. Then I came back to faith. But there's a line that I always think of by this. She was actually a feminist back in the day, Emma Bombeck, and she has this line that I love, which is, she says, "When I stand before God at the end of my days, I hope to be able to say, I have not one drop left. I used every single thing that you gave me."
Yes.
And it every time I'm struggling, I think about that.
Yes.
And I was wondering for you, you're such a man of you read, multiple books a week and many a month, and you're such a man, like you remember all these quotes. Are there quotes that you live by that you like when your faith is struggling that you repeat in your head?
Yeah, I got two, and these are ones that I actually made up. I deal with really bad panic attacks, right? Like I've got a handle on them, in my more recent years. But like when I was young, I used to deal with like these really severe panic attacks, and when I didn't know what they were, when I didn't know that I was having actual panic attacks, I would always repeat this mantra. I would say, "I love Jehovah God and His Son, Jesus Christ. I love Jehovah God and His Son, Jesus Christ. I love Jehovah God and His Son, Jesus Christ. Fuck Satan, fuck Satan, fuck Satan." So I would say, "I love Jehovah God and His Son, Jesus Christ" 3 times, and I would say, "Fuck Satan" 3 times. And the reason I would do that is because, when you read in the Bible, in the book of Job, Job's wife kept telling Job, "Hey, curse God and die." Right? Why don't you just curse God and die? So I used to always be like, why would I curse God? Like I'm not going to ever curse God and die. So let me just curse Satan. Because I feel like this what I now know to be anxiety, this panic attack is him. So I would say, "I love Jehovah God and His Son, Jesus Christ. Fuck Satan." And I can't even front. It would bring me back to center in a real way. I mean, now when I've done a lot more work on myself, so I do meditation and things like that. So I understand mantras, right? Like you understand the mantra when you're counting your beads, when you're meditating. You understand how that can bring you back to center. I was doing that back then and didn't even know it. And my other motto that I always say is yo, keep God first, stay humble, keep working. Anything that happens in my life, I say keep God first, stay humble, keep working. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because, one thing I've realized over the last few weeks, because, we're taping this like the first week of January, right? Yep. I've watched a lot of people, like when certain things happen, when certain, like you just talked about, my new deal with iHeart. I've watched a lot of people have conversations about that. And man, it really makes me realize how much people don't believe in God and hard work.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Because anytime you get to a certain level of success, they think that you had to get there by some nefarious means. They think that you got to be in the Illuminati, you busting it open on the casting couch. Men and women, by the way. It ain't just women that they think. It ain't just women they think is busting it open on the casting couch. Men and women they think is busting it open on the casting couch. And it just makes me realize how many people don't believe in God and hard work. Because if you believed in God and hard work, you wouldn't look at somebody else and just say, they only got that because they did some bullshit. You would say, man, I've been watching that person for decades now. I've been doing radio for 28 years, like literally 28 years. Even if you don't count South Carolina, if you've been watching me from the time I started with Wendy, it's been 20 years. You've been watching that person for 20 years. You've literally watched that person grow. You watched them evolve. You watched ups. You watched downs. You watched them go through fire. You watched all of these different things. But the one thing you can't say is that person wasn't consistent and that person wasn't working hard. And then when that person, achieves something, you want to attribute it. You want to give the devil credit for that?
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to give God and hard work any credit whatsoever. So what happens when you achieve a tremendous level of success? Yeah. Should we just say, oh, that person only got that because of Satan? That person only got that because they were busting it open on the casting couch? I don't even think people understand the narratives they create that will eventually come back and bite them in the ass as well. So yes, I give God all praises, and I am only here because God has been guiding me all of these years.
It's so true. I remember one of my early mentors said to me, if you hate rich people, then how do you think you're ever going to be rich? Mm-hmm. And I never hated. I'm not really a hateful kind of person. Sometimes I wish. Like Sierra was here the other week on a podcast. I was like, what do you do, when you have a hater? And she's a woman of faith. She's incredible. I've really come to respect her a lot. And she had such a good line. She's like, I give it up to God. I don't worry about it. But she's like, I'd be keeping receipts though, And yeah. She's like, I'd be keeping some names. And I was like, I love that line. Like I remember, I forgive. I'll remember though. But I think what happens with a lot of us is like, isn't it weird how we're wired from being young? Like sometimes I'll be on a stage in a business thing and I'll say to the audience, blank is the root of all evil. What's the root of all evil? And they'll just respond, money.
Money, yeah.
When did we learn that? It's not actually that in the Bible. It is the love of money is the root of all evil. But like, how are we programmed to think that? And so that's when I start realizing maybe it's not always their fault. Like the people who hate on you with this iHeartMedia deal, I almost, it like hurts my heart a little bit. I'm like, I know right where you are. It's that you still think that money is the root of all evil, and you've never questioned why that programming is in your brain, and you don't know where it came from.
Oh, I know. I mean, I know where it came from.
What do you think?
It came from being broke. Like when you broke, you're going to be disgruntled. When you're broke, you're going to be upset about that, and you're going to say things like money is the root of all evil. People will say things to justify why they're not in the position that they want to be in. But man, I'm be honest. I know this is gonna sound crazy. I genuinely, truly don't care about money. I care about being happy. I tell folks all the time, man, what is success? Success is you're doing whatever it is that you want to do and it makes you happy.
Yeah.
I know people right now that, are making tens of millions of dollars and they hate their jobs or they hate, what it is that they're doing. So is that actually success? I know people who are in South Carolina right now making $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year, but they got a roof over their head. They got food on the table. They can take a vacation every now and then when they want to, and they are genuinely happy.
Yep.
Success should be rooted in happiness, not in a monetary amount of, like this should just be rooted in, are you happy doing what it is that you're doing? I am happy doing what it is that I'm doing. I love what it is that I do. I love waking up in the morning to go do morning radio. This is literally what I used to pray for and what I used to dream about. When I was in, Charleston, South Carolina at Z93 Jams in 1999, I was praying for times like this. I wanted to be the super jock. You heard the people I named prior, the Tom Joyners, the Doug Bates, like those were the nationally syndicated radio personalities that a whole generation was listening to. I love being in the middle of one of my unanswered prayers.
Oof.
So there's no dollar amount that can make me any more happier than I already have been. I'm in the Radio Hall of Fame. I'm literally in the Radio Hall of Fame. I've been successful and happy, not because of any money, but because I chose to do something and, God allowed me the wherewithal and the skill to navigate my way to that point.
So one of the things that actually brought me back to you online is you had this post about the trades. And you were talking about
the trades?
Yeah, like plumbing, HVAC, and blue collar.
Got you.
And I was like, oh man, I totally agree. And you were basically saying, I think, in so many words, like blue collar jobs are just as important and powerful as white collar jobs.
More important.
There you go. So I want to talk about this with you. Like, what do you think about university versus trade school? What do you think about blue collar versus white collar? What would you say to a lot of my audience is a lot of blue collar people who are working their way up? Like, give me your take.
I think, number one, you should do whatever it is that you're called to do. But I do think that sometimes we love to push people to what we think is the new trendy thing, right? Right now it's AI. Prior to that, it was like, just social media and the internet in general, right? Like you got to learn how to code and all of these different things. Sure. I do agree with that. But man, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You still gonna need somebody to come through this building and install the plumbing. You still gonna need somebody to come through this building and install the HVAC. This building is going to need, electricians, right? Like you're going to need those people with those skill sets. So I think what the future should look like is people who decide they want to go to trade school and then using some of this new technology to make their jobs easier. It's the next generation of millionaires and, tens of millionaires, maybe even billionaires, are going to come from people who know how to merge the two worlds. It's funny. I was having a conversation with one of my guys about this, and they were like, "Why you always be telling people to go to trade school? Trade school. Those are the black jobs that Donald Trump was talking about." I'm like, those are the jobs that pay green. That's not a black job. Like, no. We are not in this room right now without anybody who understands how to do things with their hands. Like, every single piece of equipment in this room, the lighting, everything, the bathroom I used earlier was because of a blue collar worker. We can't exist without them. They make the world go around. So yeah, I do encourage, a lot of people to go to trade school, because everybody don't necessarily want to go to, a university and get a degree. And I don't have a problem with that either. Some people want to go to trade school and, do that for a couple of years and come home and start making money immediately. I got, friends and family members back home in South Carolina who've been, installing HVAC and, doing electrical work for 30 years. Ain't missed a meal, ain't missing no paycheck. They not complaining about, recessions, nothing. They are making their money. Lawn care services. Like, there is so many, blue collar jobs that people are making six figures on right now.
And you actually, from what I understand, you have an endowment, or you help with education as well in South Carolina.
Yeah,
right?
I have my mother went to South Carolina State University. I have an honorary degree from South Carolina State University. And I started this endowment fund called the Ford Family Scholarship. And salute to, a woman I call another mother of mine. Her name is Nicole Brevard. She was somebody who was instrumental in, me even, starting that scholarship fund at South Carolina State University. And it is for people who want to major in communications, of course, because I'm a media personality, English, because my mother's an English teacher, or anything in the mental health profession. And I'm working on something right now that I think is going to really benefit people as far as trade school is concerned, because I want to give people incentive, to go to trade school. And a lot of people can't afford trade school either. So it's like, let's help some of those brothers and sisters who want to, go to trade school as well. And I'm called right now to salute a young lady named Jordan. Jordan the Welder is her name on Instagram. The reason I'm saluting her is because she's like a Breakfast Club super listener. Like, she supports us in everything that we do. Like, I do the Black Effect Podcast Festival in Atlanta, every year. I think we're on our third or fourth year, and she always comes to it. But she's a welder, and I just find her fascinating because she lives a great life. She's married, right? And she's a welder, and she makes a great living. Like I said, she comes and supports us at everything that we do, and she's a welder. So it's like, we don't always have to, run to entertainment or athletics, to live a good life.
No, in fact, there's way more people that are plumbers making $100K than podcasters,
and which
is a
them.
Crazy thing to think about.
Yes, and we need them.
Order of magnitude.
Listen, we need them. Like, I hate, man, that's why I always say treat the CEO the same way you treat the custodian.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, in a lot of ways, the custodian is more important or just as important. Could you work in a building that was disgusting?
No, absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you heard me. I was like, I heard a bit of noise back. Like,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you knew that the bathrooms in this building were disgusting, you might not ever come here ever again.
Yeah.
So that's why people like the custodians and stuff are important, because they make our lives so much easier. So we got to constantly find ways to make their lives easier as well.
Oh, it's so true. Like, one of my favorite people, I opened the book with him, is this guy, Wayne Huizinga. I'm really bummed that he died before I got to meet him. But he was
God bless the dead.
Yeah, he was a garbage man. That's how he started. He was a dropout from college. He went to the military. He became a garbage man, driving a truck. Then he figured out, well, maybe I could buy one truck and I could start my little route. And that route turned into waste management, which became a multi-billion-dollar business, and then Blockbuster that he started and sold before it went sideways, and then owned a bunch of sports teams.
What?
Garbage dude. And so it's like, all around us, I think the problem, like the lie that we were told, is that you have to stay the garbage man when you start as the garbage man. It's like, yeah, start cleaning the toilets. That's sick. But then how much easier is it to climb the ladder from the guy who did the cleaning to the next rung, to the next rung, to the next
That's
rung,
right.
if you're competent, and then
That's right.
own the motherfucker.
That's right.
I'm on board.
And by the way, even if you don't want to do that, that's cool too.
Yeah, that's true.
There's parking attendants that I look forward to seeing every day. Cause when I see them, they screaming my name. I scream their name.
yeah.
Like some of them might be singing songs. Like, you know, they might be talking to me about stuff that we was talking about on the air. Those are the people I like to talk to. What do we know? We've been doing.
I do a lot of this.
Yeah, like I like talking to working class people because I definitely I still consider myself a working class person. I just do a different line of work. But I used to work at Taco Bell. I did telemarketing. I worked at a clothing store. Me and my now wife used to work at a clothing store in the mall when we was, teenagers. I did all of those things, but you really get to see what's going on in the world when you have conversations with working class people. They're the ones that can help you keep your boots on the ground.
Let's say we got one of them listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to listen to you, and they've come to the end of this podcast, and you get to send them off. Like, what are you saying to the person who's on their climb, figuring it out? What would be the advice you would give them today? The thought that you would leave them with?
The first thing I would say to them is thank you. I am grateful that you decided to listen to the Codie Sanchez podcast with Charlamagne the God. Thank you. And thank you for, whatever it is that you're doing every day that makes our lives, better. And I would tell them, and the reason I'm saying thank you is because I would tell them, make sure that they have a attitude of gratitude as well. Because, man, when you wake up every day and you are genuinely grateful for where you are, like you say, God, thank you, man. God, I'm so thankful and grateful to be, number one, just alive, but then number two, to be able to do what it is that I'm currently doing. You will constantly get blessed with more. I think that is what truly makes an individual happy, right? When you have true gratitude for where you are in life, at the moment. Like you can't wake up every day and hate what it is that you do. If you wake up every day and hate what it is that you do, please change what it is that you do. like you have to. Like you cannot wake up every day and hate what it is that you do because you're gonna project that negative energy onto everybody. Like don't be the garbage man with an attitude, right? Don't be the person working at the fast food restaurant with the attitude. And same goes for us. Like if I wake up every morning with a negative attitude, I'm gonna get on that radio and I'm gonna project that onto the people. And trust me, I've been that before. I've been in that space where I've been that before, and God had to remind me quick, I can take this away from you. You do know that, right? Like I could take this away from you in 2 seconds. So you asked for this. You prayed for this. This is what you wanted. This is what you worked hard towards. How dare you come up here every morning and project what you got going on, negatively to the people. That's one of the reasons I started going to therapy. And when I started going to therapy back in 2016, I would literally come on the radio and tell everybody that I'm going to therapy every Friday at 3:00. I started talking to the people about what it was I was dealing with because I owed that to them. They can't turn on the radio and hear me going off on somebody or hear me maybe badgering somebody in an interview. I'm like, damn, why is this person doing? Why is he coming like that? It might be entertaining to some. Some might be like, what is up with this dude? I started to go do the work on myself because I wasn't happy with what was going on with me internally. And so me coming on the radio and expressing that, to other people and tell people I'm going to therapy and trying to get a handle on my anxiety and bouts of depression and things like that, that became a whole movement of its own. And that just started with me being honest with my listeners and not wanting to take for granted the blessing that God had gave me because I know he could take it away from me in a heartbeat. And that was 2016. So that was 6 years in the Breakfast Club. We still here 9 years later. I continue to grow. I continue to evolve. So clearly, I did something right.
Last thing for you, like, what should people be following you on this year? I know you're working on a million things, but like, where are you like, I'm fucking excited. Tune into this, people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Well, the Breakfast Club is coming to Netflix this year.
Yeah.
So,
That's sick. So open up your TV.
Open up your TV. Yeah, like right now, if you can go to Netflix right now, type in Breakfast Club, and you'll see it pop up. I think they say the video podcast start on January 26th. So you can set your reminders for that. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people are having conversations about, Netflix, and they're saying Netflix is trying to compete with YouTube. I don't think Netflix is necessarily trying to compete with YouTube. I just think Netflix is doing what all of these, streaming platforms are doing. Let's bring on content that people want to watch, and let's just see if we can, get as many eyeballs over here and have them, spending their time and attention, with us. So I just think, it's dope for the podcasting game, right? To see where podcasting has grown and where it's evolved to where, a premium, network like Netflix, wants to have us on. And man, I just hope to do more of that. Like, I want to like sitting here talking to you, you have a hit podcast, but what else does Codie Sanchez want to do? Codie Sanchez might have a scripted show in mind based off her life or something. Codie Sanchez might want to do documentaries. Those are the things that I'm thinking about with all of these streaming platforms. Netflix has gotten the game in a real way. I think Apple should follow suit. I think Peacock should follow suit. I think Amazon should follow suit and just tap in with us, right? These new media personalities who, have a lot of different content and IP that we can bring to the table. So that's one thing, Breakfast Club on Netflix. I also have a book imprint called Black Privilege Publishing, and 2026 is going to be a huge year for us because we have Arsenio Hall's memoir.
Oh, I fucking love him.
Yeah, which comes out in April. He's been one of my entertainment inspirations forever. I have 4 huge entertainment inspirations. It's Jay-Z, Clarence Avant, a radio personality named Petey Green, God bless the dead, and Arsenio Hall. And so it's like a privilege to be publishing his memoir. So that comes out in March, I believe, but you can pre-order his book now. My man 2 Chainz, who you should actually have on this podcast because his business mind, he is, a very, very astute, businessman. Like one of my, business ventures, which is the Crystal franchises that me and my wife have in South Carolina. I got into him because of 2 Chainz. He
What
has
is a Crystal franchise?
Crystal is a burger spot.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so they serve like little sliders. Like, so they're like the down south White Castle.
Oh,
and so, he has a role at Crystal. And my man Lil Duval, I saw him one day, because Duval does this thing in his community called Duval Day. And I saw him with all these Crystal burgers. And I'm like, damn, I ain't see Crystal in a minute. Where you get Crystal from? And he was like, yo, 2 Chainz is, working with them now. So I reached out to Chainz and, my guy Technique, that's 2 Chainz partner. And they plugged me right in with my man, Jonathan Childs, who owns the Crystal franchises. So me and my wife ended up doing 6 of them. Salute to my guy Billy as well. And so we got 2 Chainz book coming out. The Voice in My Head is God. That comes out in April. My co-host Jess Hilarious, on the Breakfast Club, she has a book coming out called Tell Death Do We Parent. It's a co-parenting book. That comes out this year as well. And we have some other ones that we haven't announced yet, so I can't announce them. But those 3 we've already announced, so you can go pre-order those wherever you buy.
Let's do it.
Books now.
Pre-orders are so important. It's like I don't think people realize, like, if you like one, if you like Arsenio, if they like you, if they like Jess, like the best thing, it's such a gift to do a pre-order because all the publishing nonsense you got to get through. So hopefully you guys go buy some of those books.
Pre-orders are important, but I think that they're I'm not gonna say they're a tad bit overrated. I think the publishing company puts a little too much emphasis on them.
Yeah.
Because people buy in the moment. People want to buy like
what
right
about
now.
to hit New York Times? Like the shenanigans I had to go through to try to, I was like, don't buy now. Wait 3 seconds. Only from this spot. It's fucking crazy town.
Yeah.
So my second book, I'm not doing any of that. No.
I care about selling books more than I care about the list. Because the list is all politics, you know that.
I can't believe they let me on there. I thought for sure, Main Street Millionaire title about boring businesses making money, like
that's what people
want. Yeah, but they don't. I don't think.
I'll drive myself crazy worrying about stuff like that. Seriously, because you just don't. I don't know how it works. Like it's all politics with all of those lists. So I just want people to go out there and buy the books, learn something from the books. Most importantly, because all of those different books serve different purposes. Arsenio Hall's memoir is just for anybody who grew up on Arsenio and wants to see the ins and outs of Hollywood in the 90s and why he made the decisions that he made, because what he was doing was groundbreaking and revolutionary back then. So if you ever woof, 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 you're going to love that book. 2 Chainz is literally The Voice in My Head is God. So it's like a spiritual book that shows you, why he made the moves that he made, from child to, now as an adult. And, Jess' book is about co-parenting. It's literally about how her and her, her first baby's father, have had a healthy co-parenting relationship. So we got a lot of different books for a lot of different people.
Oh, I can't wait to read them.
Absolutely.
Charlamagne the God, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cody.
This is amazing.
Absolutely.
We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys by our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you.
What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today.
I'm very fortunate, very grateful for what I have and what I've achieved. But at the same time, I would give up so much of it just to go back to the early days of building Tinder. Because the energy, the love, the camaraderie, that is the greatest high. Yeah. And you could feel that if you're building a local coffee shop. It's all about love. It's like when you're flowing and doing something you love with people you love, there's no greater gift.
And I do think we do a huge disservice for telling people these days that, hey, unless you get Silicon Valley cash, unless you go VC back, unless you're on the cover of Forbes, you're not a success.
Huge disservice.
Welcome back to The Big Deal. I'm Codie Sanchez, and this podcast is for those of you looking to not just get rich, but free and do what it actually takes to get there. Okay, today's episode, amazing. Sean Rad, a guy who I've started to become real friends with, the founder of Tinder. He's been off of the internet for years now, but came back on for this episode. We've been talking lately about a few things that I think you're going to love. Not just how do you build a multi-billion-dollar marketplace that forever changes dating in this country and around the world, but also how do you as a young entrepreneur today apply the lessons that he used to build whatever you're doing. We talk also about some of the things happening in America and what his thoughts are on them. I don't think he's ever shared that before. And also we finish up talking a little bit about dating. If you are looking for that special someone in your life, if it's hard out there right now, why not listen to a dude who has, I don't know, helped 50 million plus relationships happen across this country? He is a guy who has been through real difficulty, lawsuits, public fights, getting pushed out of CEO position, then coming back in. He has lived the full cycle of the founder's journey. And I think that is interesting because often founders won't talk about that. We only talk about the upside, not the downside. And in today's episode, he's real with you guys about what it takes to win and what it takes to be in the game. So without further ado, Sean Rad. So you went from 6 or 8 years ago being everywhere on the internet. I was looking up all of these interviews of Sean to, I couldn't find another one in the last 5 years besides one other. What have you been up to?
I sailed into the sunset and I disappeared.
You did.
No, I've been doing a lot. I think I hit a moment in my life where I felt like it's maybe easier to be creative and create things without a lot of noise. And, when I was starting out, I was nowhere. No one knew who I was. And that I think was so freeing. And I had my 5 minutes of attention, and part of me just didn't like it. It wasn't about that. I guess it's fun to share my story and inspire others. That feels really good. But once I left Tinder, I was no longer representing a bigger company. I could kind of just go back to being me, normal guy.
Interesting. So did you kind of get jaded from being too public and all the attention that brought one way or the other?
A little bit. I mean, I was always, whenever I would do something like this, it was always about the business. Mm-hmm. And I was there representing the business. I was there talking about something we're doing. And there was purpose in that because I wanted people to understand our story and our users to sort of hear what we're about. And whenever it would become about me, I would get very awkward and like spaz out. Like I'd want to talk about me. Now I guess I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, I think during a lot of this point, you were like in your early 20s.
I was young. Yeah.
Yeah. You were young, super public, and talking about a dating app. Yeah. I think at one point I was watching one interview and they were trying to name off like your number of sexual partners, which I was like, oh my God. Wow, that's a real throwback.
Yeah. I mean, look, Tinder was massive global product that I think had a lot of implications on society and romance. And I love talking about that. But then I started doing interviews where it felt like, let's get him to say something stupid. Let's like get personal. Let's get a zinger out of him. And I was just kind of like, that's not what I'm here for, right? I'd love to talk about the company. I'd love to talk about the team, but it's not about me. I just didn't know how to handle questions like that.
Yeah, who does?
Like, what do I say when someone's asking how many partners have you had when you're there to talk about your company? It was just weird.
Yeah, now I think that's probably more normal. Back then, probably not. No press team's going to prep you for that.
No.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that you built this huge multi-billion-dollar company, right? That was really public, that was in the zeitgeist. But, you had some resources before you had sold the company. Yep. But one of your superpowers that I found really interesting is you kind of use what you got. And so it's not like you launched Tinder with this crazy story. You're like, we launched it. Nobody really cares. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of uptick. Mm-hmm. What the fuck do we do now?
Well, I think as an entrepreneur, you have to sort of take sticks and build a house. Mm-hmm. You have to be resourceful. And sometimes when you don't have a lot of resources, it forces you to get creative, forces you to do something out of the box. So I think my mindset was always, if I had a dream, if I had a vision, it wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how. And I always knew there was a path, just had to sort of be creative. I never sort of had this mindset of, I don't have resources, or I don't have something, or I can't do something. I always had this mindset that even with the company, it's like, we can do anything. It's just a question of at what cost. Are we the right people to do it? So I think you have to be resourceful as an entrepreneur.
Where did you get that mindset? Is that something that your parents instilled in you? Did you cultivate it?
I think, so my parents came here from Iran, Iranian Jewish. They had a successful business, lost it all. They had to basically flee the country when Jews were being persecuted. And my dad came here, met my mom here, but he came here with like $20 in his pocket. It's actually a funny story. His idea of America was always sunny LA, but he lands in Chicago and he only had a t-shirt. He didn't even have a jacket, so freezing cold. And I think there was always this mindset of this immigrant mentality that we have to make something of ourselves, we have to be resilient. And maybe with my family, it was a little bit of, earn back what we lost. So I grew up, I would say, with a lot of, I would say, being pushed to sort of make a contribution to society, make a contribution, do something with your life, and also be very resilient. Don't blame others. Take responsibility. And I think that was very valuable as an entrepreneur because, life's hard. The life of an entrepreneur can be excruciatingly hard. And when you approach it with this mindset that like you can do anything, it's all in your control. You have agency, and don't blame others. Take responsibility, and be resilient and power through the hard times. I think you can accomplish a lot.
Yeah, I was reading that the average business owner makes about $76,000 per year if they're able to survive the 90% drop-off rate in the first 3 years.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what it would look like to build a multi-billion-dollar business. What do you think it takes to just hit profitability? If you were going to look back and say, God, all right, if I was going to do it again, or if you were doing it today, how do you get to that first 76K? Because I think even these days that feels out of reach.
Well, look, you have to be willing, if you're starting a business, you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot of comfort. And the only reason to do that is because you really love what you're doing. You have to love it. It has to be from the heart, or else you're going to give up. And when it's from the heart, you're willing to take a lot of pain for that bigger mission. So I think that helps you power through. And I think you don't sort of start out a business thinking I'm going to build $1 billion business. It's probably too much pressure. Like if someone came and told me when I was building Tinder, hey, you got to build a business that is going to transform the world, $1 billion business, I don't even know if I would have built Tinder because I didn't have the foresight to say that this would do that. What I was more focused on is building a product that I love, that I want to use, that my friends want to use, and trusting that if I create value in people's lives, they will pay me for it. And we build a business that way. And eventually, sort of the early days felt like a knife fight. Like every user we had to beg to kind of come into the platform. And eventually, the better you get at what you're doing, the more momentum you get, it starts to take a mind of its own. Certain things get easier and then new challenges come in and other things get hard and you have to power through those. And through iteration, you end up clawing your way to something bigger. There is this idea that these massive companies that we know started with that intention. I just think it's false. I think if you talk to most successful entrepreneurs of that caliber, they would not say when they were starting out what they were doing that they ever imagined it would be what it became. It's like you can kind of connect the dots looking back. It's much harder to connect the dots looking forward. Yeah. So for me, it was always about follow your heart, follow your passion, and just kind of trust that the rest is going to go to the right place.
Okay, one thing that I wonder about with people is when they hear follow your passion and love for what you do, it's not like you were passionately in love with matchmaking or something. You're like, I'm passionate painter, and so I want to become a painter. You're like, you're in love with the game, right? Or like, well, do you think people should just follow their passion? Is that how you make a bunch of money?
No, look, I think it's kind of a Venn diagram, right? You got to follow your passion. You got to focus on what you're good at. You got to do something that people are willing to pay you for. Yep. So you sort of have to check a lot of boxes. But to me, the most important is follow the thing that you love. For me, it wasn't necessarily, I want to build a dating app or I want to build this matchmaker to bring the world together, but it very much was a fascination of the mobile phone. It had just come out at that time. And I knew that, wow, this thing is going to connect us in unimaginable ways. The idea that I have the power of the most powerful computer in my pocket with me all the time is game changing. And I was in love with the what can be done with the phone, but also I had this other insight where all of my friends at a certain point were like, we were together, but everyone's like heads down in their phones. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is weird. And it just, the thing I was passionate about was this idea that, you know, the phone could, if we're not careful, take us away from the real world. But what if we can use it to bring us closer to the real world? And that was like the start of Tinder. It's like, how can I use this device to help me create more connection in the real world, which as a 20-something, that's all I wanted. I wanted, you know, I wanted more friends. I wanted a relationship. And I think I struggled with that, and everyone around me was struggling with that. So the thought I had and the thing that I was passionate about was, how can I use that phone to bring us closer together? Now, I didn't know where that was going to take me. You know, I think I iterated, I tried different ideas, and eventually the idea for Tinder emerged. But that was me really just following the flow of what I was curious about and what I loved, and not thinking too much about where it's going to take me. Is it going to make me money? Because I think those thoughts early on could almost constrain your creativity and can create pressure that will prevent you from following your heart.
Interesting. Yeah, how many different iterations do you think you had to go through before you landed on Tinder?
So Tinder was, you know, it was my fourth company. So I would say there are many iterations as an entrepreneur that I went to, successes and failures before I
How many failures? How many of those made you any money?
Out of the 3 companies that I started prior to Tinder, 2 of them made me some money.
Okay.
Not like life-changing, but it was, you know, but I wouldn't say they were successful in terms of what I had hoped they would do.
Sure.
But I walked away from each one with a lot of learning. And
you started Tinder at how old?
I was 25.
Wow. So by the time you were 25, you had already had 4, that would have been your
3 companies, yeah.
4th shot on goal.
I started my first company when I was 17.
Underachiever, huh?
Yeah, so I loved creating, and I loved building things. And I came from a family of entrepreneurs and builders, and sort of like what I grew up with. It felt right, but
how'd you know when to kill them?
How to kill them?
Like when to kill them? Like
yeah.
You know, sometimes I think like the worst thing you could do in life is like you stick with the thing, because never quit, because then you're a failure.
Great question. Look, you gotta know when to quit. And I don't think people talk about that enough. I think we sort of idealize this idea of the entrepreneurs, the person who never gives up and will keep going through with their vision. And if everyone tells you it's a bad idea, then it must be a good idea. That is a crock of shit. If everyone tells you it's a bad idea, then either it's a bad idea or you're asking the wrong people. You're not asking your customers. So for me, I always had this mindset. Maybe it was like a sort of a confidence, but at the same time a humility. Like I was always very curious of absorbing the feedback around me with everything I was doing. And if we would succeed, I got curious. Why did we succeed? What do we do? And if we failed, I also got curious. Why did we fail? What can I learn from that? Is there a lesson that I'm going to take into the next thing? And I think when you live your life that way, when you sort of cultivate this mindset that there's learning and success and failure, and as long as I'm turning whatever is happening to me into an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to grow, you're going to always sort of, you know, it might not go straight up. Your life might not go straight up. You're going to have your bumps in the road, but you'll pick yourself back up. You'll take that learning. You'll do better next time. And that was sort of the mindset that I think brought me to Tinder, but also the mindset that carried Tinder through success. I mean, we were fortunate enough to make a lot of good decisions, and then we were also fortunate enough to make a lot of bad decisions. But at no point when we made a mistake did we get upset about it. Did we blame each other? It was always, okay, that didn't work. Let's have the courage to admit it, and let's take that as an opportunity to do something even better. Now, if we didn't have the courage to admit it and something didn't work and we kept pursuing it, we would have just sunk with the Titanic, right? And that is a horrible, like, you got to know when to jump on, but you also have to know when to jump off.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting too about you is, you know, I haven't seen your bank account, but the internet tells me it's big, and that you've had all these different successes. Tech savant, you know, people want to be like Sean these days. And yet you've also been, in some ways, kind of fired really publicly, been through a lot of difficulty. What was that like, do you remember, for somebody listening that's kind of scared of even stepping out there? Or maybe it's had to happen to them. Well,
look, I mean, you're going to get hurt when you're taking risks. And again, if you love what you do, then you're going to take that hurt as motivation and a lesson and grow. Look, we grow through pain in life, right? We take risks, we get hurt, we learn, we pick ourselves up, and we do better. And when I didn't get fired, but I was the board felt that I would do the company a service by focusing on product and technology. Company was growing insanely fast. This was my first experience at managing something at that scale. For most everyone on the team, it was their first. I mean, Tinder was growing so fast that it wasn't the kind of thing where you can kind of point to someone and say, "Oh, you've done that before," right? Because like no one had done that before. It was growing so fast. So I sort of thought, and the board thought, it would be a good idea for me to focus more on product and technology, which is where my passion was. That ended up being a very bad idea for the business. We brought in a new CEO that didn't work out, so I came back into the role. And I think it was the best experience because being able to step out, humbled me and also gave me perspective to understand that every part of the business mattered equally. It wasn't like as a leader, as a founder, that I can just go focus on product and technology and everything else would just sort of figure itself out, or that I can play favorites. As a leader, you have to give equal love to every part of your business because it's like great music. Every instrument matters. Every chord matters. Every note matters. And everyone has to be playing and drumming to the same beat. And when you don't have that as a company, you're going to have hard times. So I think for me, it was great. I got to step out. I learned from that experience. I came back in, and I think I was a better leader as a result. So I have no regrets.
Was there ever a point at Tinder where you thought, this thing's going to implode, we're not going to make it, and then I am going to be a failure? Did you ever have one of those dark nights of the soul? So many. Oh, my God. Sometimes in the early days, because things weren't working, I'm like, how are we going to get users? How are we going to get people to use this? And then sometimes because they were working so well that I remember in the early days, at 8 p.m., Tinder would just stop working for everyone because we had so many users flooding the system, and we couldn't rebuild the system fast enough to sustain the scale. Because when we built it, we sort of we didn't build it with scale in mind. We didn't think we were going to be hit and grow so fast. So we had this airplane flying, but the airplane wasn't, built to go at Mach 2.
And we couldn't like land the plane and fix it because we had to keep going, but then we had to rebuild the airplane while it's in the air. And so many times there was this fear of like, oh shit, this isn't going to work. We're not going to be able to fix this. We're going to lose all the momentum that we're getting. So, sometimes success and rapid success is just as hard as failure. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a champagne problem to have. Don't get me wrong. I choose that problem over failure. But when you're growing like this, you don't really have a lot of time to dot your I's, cross your T's, get your ducks in a row. When a business is growing like this, there's the luxury of space and time, and you could be a little more thoughtful. When you're growing like this, you really need to prioritize. You really need to pick your battles. You really need to be that much better at navigating and getting the team to focus on what matters and making a decision of what you're going to leave for later.
Yeah. I was reading a study the other day that something like 80% of startups fail because they run out of cash. And I think most people think that is because they can't sell enough. But I'm not convinced that it's always that. I think it is often that people don't understand float. People don't understand that if you're growing really quickly, it actually costs you a bunch of money before it'll ever make you any money. And so they're really, I'm not even sure if it's champagne. It could be really awful on both sides. You could have a fast-moving rocket ship blow up just as easily as sort of one that never takes off.
Yeah, and money doesn't solve all problems. If money was the reason that startups succeed, then you wouldn't have a scenario where smaller companies disrupt bigger companies. Just think about that, right? Let's look at Google. Google's a good example. Bing or Microsoft at one point put $2 billion into building a better Google. Well, if money bought you success, then they would have won. They didn't. They just sort of pissed away $2 billion. And I think what startups need to understand is that constraints can sometimes be your friend. When you don't have a lot of money, when you don't have a lot of options, it forces you to focus on what really matters. It forces you to get creative. And that's often why startups succeed and can move faster than bigger companies because there's less distractions. They can zero in on what really matters. And that's a gift, right? And it shouldn't be a gift to put to waste, right? If you're sitting there as a startup saying, man, only if I had more money, only if I had more people, only if I had more of this, you're focused on the wrong thing. Again, focus on what's in front of you and what you do have, and how do you maximize what you have, and how do you become more resourceful. Because a lot of times people don't solve problems, they can create more problems. A lot of the times money doesn't solve problems, money can actually create more problems. So it's sort of the wrong thing to focus on. But of course, you need capital to grow at the right time. Just don't want to put the cart before the horse.
We just did something really cool. If you've ever thought about buying a business or want to understand what the word seller financing means, you've got to try this. So basically you fill out this application right here and we sort every single human who comes through this list to the right tool and resource for them when it comes to buying a business, when it comes to finding financing for buying a business, and when it comes to building a business. So you get directed to our member of experience or one of our members of experience, and they find the right tools and resources for you. Some of this stuff is just free. Like, oh, hey, you don't understand seller financing? Here's an article for you. Some of it is, wow, you really are ready for the 303 level. You should do the workshop. Some of it is like, you know what? Start here with our first little entry guide. I want to make sure that I get every single human only what they need when they need it to become an owner. You might like this. Hit the link in the description below and we will sort you to figure out what kind of business buyer are you.
It seems like taking risk is one of the keys to wealth and success. But for a lot of people, taking risk is hard and they never do, which is maybe why 60% of people hate their jobs and yet never leave them. How did you get comfortable with risk, or how do you think about risk, especially for young people who maybe haven't had a chance to take it yet? And would you tell them to go take active risk?
Well, first of all, the younger you are, the easier it is to take risk, right? And use that to your advantage. I started my first company when I was 17. And and I was in college I was just entering college. And I think I had this mindset that like, okay, like I have this thing, college, right? And like I could do that well. And as long as I'm doing that well, my parents will be okay. So let me go take as much risk as I can take outside of school. And let me go try different things. And I didn't have kids. I didn't have to, I was working and paying some of my own bills at the time, but I had, my parents were supporting me. And I used that as an excuse to take more risk. And I think the older you get, the harder it is to take risk. And risk is like a muscle, right? It's like the younger you try new things, and the earlier you sort of train your mindset to know that like I'm going to do something, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, that's still okay too, because I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to leverage that into the next thing. So if you have that mindset, there's no such thing as failure. You can have moments where something didn't work, but if you get back up and you use that to your advantage, then you're never going to fail. If you cower to it, and you just kind of say, "Fuck, I'm this, I'm that, I can't do it," blame others, not take accountability, then you will get kind of like sucked into the void and then be afraid to get back up and take another risk.
Lots of people say these days, work hard. If you go around and watch these videos on the internet, which you probably don't because you have good social media usage, but they, there's these young guys and they go to people in fancy cars and they're like, "How'd you make all your money?" Right? Have you ever seen those?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they go, "What advice would you give to a 20-something?" And they always go, "Work hard." And I wonder, do you think hard work is enough?
No. I mean, if hard work was enough, well, look, I think it depends. What is enough is the first question you got to ask, right? What is success? I think we have a lot of false notions of what success looks like. But I mean, if you want to say, hey, success is maybe freedom or financial freedom, then you have to work hard. But is that enough? No, because if you're expending hard work and energy on things that don't matter, is that going to make you successful? No. So I think, your body's kind of like an engine. You got to rev the engine and you got to move. If you're just sitting still, you're not going to go anywhere, right? But so the hard work is the movement, the motion, the engine, the doing things. But if you're driving on the wrong road, then you're just wasting your time. So I think it's a balance of hard work, but thoughtfulness. It's a balance of hard work, but moments of asking yourself, what do I really love? What do I want? What is success for me? Planning, right? Revisiting your plan as you learn, realizing, okay, well, maybe that plan wasn't right. Maybe I got to shift my plan a little bit. Hard work on its own won't get you to any destination. It'll just get you motion, but you got to point the car in the right direction.
How do you figure out the right games to play or the right roads to go on? I think that's the hardest part for young people in a world with massive optionality.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's beautiful today for especially younger generations is we have more opportunity than we've ever had, right? So someone who's 18 has more opportunity than I had when I was 18, and I had at 18 way more opportunity than my parents had. And sometimes that could be overwhelming, right? Because it's like you have so many options. What do I do? And that's again where I go back to like following your passion and following what's in front of you. I think like I have young cousins who often come to me like, what do I do with my life? Like, I want to do what you did. I want to be successful. I just don't know where to start. And my advice is always like, well, what are your options right now? Put aside where you want to be. What is available to you? Just grab one, move, right? And then you'll learn. And maybe that's not the right thing. And then you can jump off that. Again, you got to know when to jump on and when to jump off. Momentum is your friend. If you don't have momentum, you're not learning, you're not iterating. So I think people spend, especially these days, I see this with a lot of young people, too much time thinking about what am I going to do with my life? Who am I going to be? And too little time with just focusing on being. Just do what's in front of you, learn, iterate. I was a college student, that's what I was doing, and I dabbled with other stuff. And when something better came along, I dropped out of college and I jumped on that boat. And when that startup, I felt like my plan wasn't really working out. I wasn't afraid to say, okay, I brought this to, I gave it 4 years. Now let me jump off this and let me jump on another opportunity. So I think having that opportunistic mindset is going to constantly push you in the right direction. But you got to just move, and you got to start with what's in front of you.
Yeah. When we were sitting in your living room, one of the things that really impressed me about you is, you have this big background, you've done all these huge things, but you mostly just asked me a ton of questions. And you're like, well, what about this? Well, have you thought about this with BizScout? Have you done this? Have you done this? And I think a lot of times people who are up and coming don't realize that the people who are the most successful are not always the ones who talk. They actually are the ones reaping information constantly. Absolutely. And so were you always curious like that? And how much is curiosity and asking a lot of questions important to success?
I guess I was always curious and always searching for truth. Like, I didn't just accept answers as they came to me. I needed to understand more and kind of go deeper and go deeper and go deeper. And that is absolutely the most important thing in life and in work, because when you ask questions, like, actually, it's harder to ask the right questions than it is to have the answers. Questions are more important than answers. As a leader, too, right? I think people have this misconception as a leader that you sort of like come down from the mountaintop with the game plan, and you guys all have to do this, and then we're going to make it. That's actually not great leadership. I think great leadership is you have a vision, and then you ask people questions, and you let them and you empower them to come up with great answers. And then you have an organization where everyone feels included. So if you're just giving everyone the answers, that's a pretty boring company to be a part of, right? No one wants to be a cog in a machine. And you're not going to extract out of people their full creativity. So I think questioning yourself, questioning others, that's what gets you to the deeper truth, and that's what pushes you to grow. And the more questions you ask, the better you get at asking questions. So absolutely. I mean, Elon Musk talks a lot about this, but the book Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a good testament to this. It's a sort of an advanced civilization that builds this unbelievable AI, and they ask it all to get to the point, what is the meaning of life? And the answer is 42. And they realize, oh shit, we actually didn't ask the right question. It's actually a lot harder to raise your consciousness to ask the right question than to just come up with the answer.
Yeah. Speaking of that, both of those, how many people did you employ at like the height of Tinder? Do you remember?
We had by the time I left, we had about 400 people at Tinder.
And you're growing fast, you're hiring like crazy, you're young. How did you become a leader?
I think through asking questions, through learning, right? I think you have to be a fast learner to succeed. You have to be able to distill a lot of information. Look, there was so many things I didn't know there was so many times where I'm like, all right, intuitively I know what to do here. I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to focus on first principles. Like, let's, on one hand, kind of put aside everyone else's experience, because even though there were people around me with a lot more experience, our team had the most experience with Tinder, right? So, we understood that the best. And you kind of start there, and you have to have some confidence in kind of knowing your shit, right? And as we scaled and we had new challenges, Again, I approached them with curiosity. All right, what are the different ways we can solve this? Let me ask mentors. Let me ask others around me. Let me ask for help. Sometimes people have a lot of problem asking for help because they think it's embarrassing if you ask for help. That's not true. It's the opposite. It's incredibly powerful to ask questions, ask for help, synthesize that information, and then come out with a thoughtful course of action. Do it. Again, ask questions. Did that work? Could we have done something better? Rinse and repeat, iterate. And that's even how we grew the product. It was, to me, my job as a leader was to ask our customers questions, right? It was like, I want to understand what they want. It's not about what I want. It's not about what the team wants. We're here to serve our users, to create value in their lives. Let's ask questions. Let's learn about them. Let's be curious. And that curiosity creates innovation.
What kind of mechanisms did you have to ask questions to your users in the beginning? Were you like picking up the phone and giving them a phone call? Were you shooting out texts?
Well, so first of all, I think this is also very important when you're building a business. We were the users, right? So we were building for ourselves at first. And a lot of people talk about this concept of product market fit, which is like, there's a market and you have to like build the right product that the market wants. And that's like a moment in time. Well, for me, it was always like, first step is product team fit. Do we want to use this product? And you got to be honest about that. And if we didn't want to use it and it wasn't good enough, back to the drawing board. So now we want to use it. Great. So the next is like product friends fit. Do the sort of closer customers around us, let's try it with them. Do they want to use it? Okay, now we cross that barrier. Now we go wider, and we go wider, and we go wider. So it's like you're stress testing the product at every single point. And I think that is, even if you're running a massive company, right, and you have a new innovation or new idea, that is the natural course evolution of success. It's like you can't jump to the end point. Don't put the cart before the horse. Build it, test it, build it, test it, iterate, test, iterate, test. That doesn't mean you don't have a vision. You have to have a vision. You have to have a sense of where you want to go, but you can't be too married to an outcome, or else you're never going to iterate, you're never going to learn, and you're never going to improve.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts that I found in building products and running teams that are fast growing, because sometimes to the team it can feel jerky. I always think about it like left row, right row on a canoe. And, maybe you have your quantitative metrics like, yeah, we want revenue, but we also want, quality, whatever your quality metric is. And so I think it can sometimes feel overwhelming for them. And as a leader, it's at times hard to explain why the path never goes like this and we can't plan perfectly. Instead, it's a little bit like this. So when you are working on businesses or with the 100 companies you've invested in since then, what advice do you give leaders to help explain to your team that, it's not going to be the most linear of a path, and that's actually normal?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is you have to, as a leader, inspire others to go on a journey with you. So you have to have a sense of what problem are we solving? Make sure that's clear. Why is it important to me as the person who's asking you to join me on this mission? And then you want people around you where that becomes important to them. So passion, right? When you have passion, naturally, when something goes wrong, people don't get stuck in that. It's like, okay, that didn't work, but like we believe in where we're going. All right, let's iterate, let's get back on. But also, you need to cultivate an honest environment. At Tinder, I encouraged people to come to me and tell me if something the company was doing was bad or something I was doing was bad. It's like I wanted that feedback. It's like, check me. Tell me I'm wrong, right? You want to cultivate that environment. And rather than like, let's all pretend like everything's beautiful and let's bury the problems under the table. When you're sort of facing both the good and the bad and the eye. People get comfortable with facing the bad, and people keep seeing that, like, when we come up with a problem, that's actually exciting because now we get to go solve it, and now we get better. And culture is very much a product of wins and losses. Culture is not like this thing, we put some fancy words on the board and we all strive to do those things. Culture is a product of experience. We tried that thing. We learned that worked. Now we sort of like develop the playbook a little further, right? Like that's for us, that was a good move. Let's codify that. We tried this thing, that didn't work. All right, well now let's understand that, like, why that didn't work. So let's not make that mistake again, and let's put that on the board and say, so the series of wins and losses becomes your culture. And that's why companies, like humans, the more we experience, the more we take risks, the better we get, the more we learn, the more we grow as a team. So I think you have to cultivate that mindset that success, failure is okay as long as, well, success is obviously okay, but failure is okay as long as we're leveraging it into something better. Yeah. Ultimate failure is not okay. Momentary failure is okay, and sometimes good, because it's like the check, like, stop, what you were doing, that's not the right path. Course correct. And if you're not willing as a team, as a culture, to look at each other and say, that didn't work, or that's a stupid idea, or we made a mistake, then you're never going to course correct, and you're never going to improve.
Yeah, what's interesting is you seem comfortable with risk and comfortable with a little bit of conflict. You obviously had a big public lawsuit in the later days of Tinder with, like, arguably one of the most powerful men in the world, Barry Dillon, and you won, or at least settled. Let's use the right vernacular. Mm-hmm. What was that like? And was that scary to go through?
It was very scary, but again, I go back to the heart. I think although it was scary, the pursuit of what I believed was right, the pursuit of defending the team, the pursuit of the heart, right? The love overshadowed all of that fear. And I just tried not to think about the fear. It's just focus on the positive, focus on the just nature of what you're doing, focus on your truth. And again, I keep saying it, but it's once you have that, when something kind of hits you off course, it's like, all right, bring it on. I'm going to get back on. I'm going to keep going because I believe in what I'm doing. It's when you actually don't believe in what you're doing, when you actually don't love what you're doing, when you get knocked down, you're not, you might not want to get back up because it's oh, is this really worth it? So the resilience, love is resilience. And cultivating a culture of love, of passion, of meaning, of purpose. As a leader, bringing that to whatever you do and inspiring that in others, that's going to power the engines beyond. That's going to create more energy than anything else, more than fear, more than hate, more than a desire to compete and destroy your competition. That's the wrong thing to focus on, because A, it's not healthy, but B, it's not going to give you the greatest level of horsepower, and it's not going to scale. Love can scale. Hate, fear, those things could give you some energy if used right, but they also don't scale. They also they're not productive. They eat you up inside. They don't make you better.
Yeah. So when you were going through it, and you gotta, I think you said it, you're we gotta go to war. Mm-hmm. We're gonna go to war with this person. And I think in business there are moments like that. And people don't like to talk about it because it doesn't always have to be a zero-sum game at all. Mm-hmm. But there are moments where, you are called to sort of battle and to either win or lose versus somebody. So how do you do that in a way where you don't lose yourself in hateful emotions? Or are some moments you're nah, I'm fucking mad. We're going to be doing this in a moment. But the long game reason why we're doing it is positive.
I think love doesn't always mean that you don't protect, defend, right? Love can sometimes be violent even, right? Like I hate drama. I don't like problems with anyone. I like win-win-win scenarios. But if someone threatens my family or someone fucks with me, right? I'm not going to just be like, oh, I love you so much. Thank you for... No, it's like, that's not love at that point. Because if you threaten something I love and you threaten my truth, then it is actually love when I say, I'm going to bring justice and I'm not going to let you get away with that and I'm going to hold you accountable. And also when you're scaling a business, look, there are times, we had Tinder such a passionate, loving environment, and we were like really close like a family that it was like really hard for me to fire people. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs deal with this. And it took me a while to realize that I used to think that if someone's not performing and if I fire them or I hold them accountable, that I'm being mean and I'm hurting them. It took me a while to see that no, I'm actually being mean by not holding them accountable. Because love is also, hey, let me tell you what you're doing is wrong so that you can improve, right? I want you to be better. And maybe sometimes that means, hey, this isn't the right place for you. There's another place where you can thrive. It's not working out here. Leaving you in that position is not love. I'm just causing suffering. So I think, again, love isn't rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah. I think, have you read any of Arthur Brooks' stuff? We're kind of talking. You've got to. He has a book called Love Your Enemies. But he started an institute at Harvard, which is all about love. And basically, really interesting guy, head of AEI, the conservative think tank, left to go to Harvard and create this institute all about happiness and love. And
is that the happiness study? Yes, know a lot about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the 80-year happiness study.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's fascinating because he's best buds with the Dalai Lama and also like on a first name basis with Karl Rove and Dick Cheney. And so you have like a very odd juxtaposition of a human.
Yeah.
But he would, in a touchy-feely way, say it's the most powerful emotion out there, more than hate, more than vengeance.
Look, I mean, do you want to be a billionaire on a yacht by yourself with no friends, with no love in your life, with unhealthy relationships? Or would you rather be a millionaire or something less, but you have great relationships in your life, you have great love, you have meaning? Like, love is all there is. I mean, I know this is very like touchy-feely that I'm saying this, but like, it really is true that when you put your ego aside and you just pursue that kind of that flow, what your soul is gravitating you towards, like you're going to be happy. And doesn't mean that bad things won't happen, but you're going to have the energy to overcome them. And you're going to actually feel like those painful moments are making you grow. So I think another thing I'll say, and very much about, this relates to Tinder, it's like, we don't celebrate love and romance as much as we used to. Like I grew up watching rom-coms, romance movies. Like I was a lover of love. Like it was so beautiful. Now it's like we celebrate some other things, maybe some ego-driven pursuits. And what we need to like remember for anyone who's been in love, who's been married, who's had like a deep bond and a friendship, the high you get from that is like no other high. That's the best high to pursue. And that's a healthy high. The other highs are momentary, can lead to addiction, and can lead to your downfall.
Yep, it's true. Tanner just got married, so he probably feels this acutely. That was last weekend.
Congrats.
I know.